Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will start the webinar in just a couple minutes. I want to give some people some time to join. At this point, you should be able to see a little kind of waiting screen. Again, we'll start in just a minute or two. Thank you. For those of you just joining, just a heads up, we'll start in about a minute. I just want to give some people some time to jump on the call. So we'll just start in about a minute or two. Thanks. All right, I think we can get started. Darcy, you want to kick us off?
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. Hello, and thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Darcy, and I am your Sage 300 account manager. Uh, Once again, thanks a lot for taking time out of your day to join the session. We've invited Stephanie and Alan from TrueSky for the session. And if you guys are not familiar with TrueSky, it is a Sage endorsed solution for companies looking to enhance their budgeting and forecasting processes. Just a quick note before I do turn it over to Stephanie, please do use the Q&A box for any questions. We will try to answer them throughout the presentation or at the end. Steph, turning this over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Darcy. And hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As Darcy said, my name is Stephanie, and I will be walking you through today's presentation where we showcase our budgeting, planning, and forecasting solution for Sage 300. What we want to do today is show you how we can help you budget better, more often, and in more detail. And we will also showcase kind of the benefits of our seamless integration to Sage 300. As Darcy said, we are completely endorsed and the only budgeting solution to be endorsed by Sage. So want to make sure you understand that, and hopefully we provide you with some ways that you can improve your budgeting process. Before we jump into the real content today, I would love to ask a question and see what the people on the call today are using to manage your budgeting and forecasting process. So I'll just launch a poll question. If you could take a second to respond, let us know what you're using to manage your process today. All right. Just give a couple more seconds. All right, so we have a good portion of people who have voted, and an overwhelmingly majority of you, 89%, say you are using Excel to budget today. The rest, 3% use a dedicated budgeting tool, and a lucky 7% do not budget at all. Now, those numbers are exactly what I expected. The majority of companies of all sizes, of all industries, use Excel to manage the budgeting process today. The first thing I want to do is chat a little bit about why we budget, the importance of budgeting, and the struggles that I'm sure most of you have budgeting with Excel. Then I'll get into kind of TrueSky and how we can help. So first and foremost, we all know budgeting is important, and I don't think you would be here today if you didn't understand its importance. Budgeting is much more than tracking numbers. It's a really critical tool for businesses to make informed decisions and decide the future of the business. Organizations that really budget effectively have a better understanding and control of their resources. They're able to more wisely allocate resources, plan for future growth, and stay financially stable. Without really robust and proper budgeting, businesses like yours risk overspending, cash flow shortages, and inefficiencies. So it's really important that companies have a strong budgeting process so that they can align their financial goals with their objectives and really aim for that long-term success. Now, most of you said you are using Excel to manage the budgeting process, and it's not surprising. Excel is a great tool. It is one of the most powerful in the office and definitely in the finance and accounting office, but it is not designed for enterprise budgeting. First of all, it's extremely error prone. Studies show that more than 90% of spreadsheets have errors. It's really easy to think of, forgetting a minus sign, adding an extra zero, all these seemingly little mistakes that really compound and can be really costly when they're spread across multiple spreadsheets and across multiple people and ultimately make the foundation of your budget. It's also really tough to scale with Excel. The larger you get, the more often you have to budget and forecast, the more people you have to involve, the more difficult budgeting with Excel gets. Again, you have all of these errors, but it's not designed for multi-user budgets. And that leads to my last point where Excel is tough to collaborate with. I'm sure we're all guilty, or definitely I'm guilty of having different spreadsheets on my desktop, V1, V2, V2 final. It's tough to track versions. It's tough to really keep track of different spreadsheets floating around. It also doesn't allow you to have those sort of real-time updates because somebody is responsible for manually consolidating spreadsheets, sending out new versions, and dealing with security. So ultimately, using Excel to budget does cause a lot of inefficiencies. Moving beyond the limitations of Excel is something that's definitely important for a lot of organizations of all sizes in order to have a really robust and reliable budget. Using a robust and dedicated budgeting solution like TrueSky helps you increase the accuracy of your budget. All of the tools and controls and automations that a new solution provides helps reduce the possibility of manual errors and improve the integrity of your data. It also allows you to collaborate to ensure that people across the organization are able to participate in the budgeting process and can provide really valuable information. Lastly, robust budgeting solutions like TrueSky do give you that real-time access to the data. Again, we are completely certified with our integration to Sage 300 so that you and the rest of your team have access to the information that you need to build up your budget. So Now I'd like to share, before we jump into a demo, all about our solution, the TrueSky solution. And you may have noticed I keep using the word solution, and that's because we are more than just a tool or more than just a piece of software. Our solution includes 4 equally important parts to help you with your budgeting, planning, forecasting, and reporting needs. First and foremost, the solution does include a tool, and we will demo that very shortly. But our tool or our software allows you to do budgeting, planning, forecasting, and reporting and dashboarding in one solution, one interface. That interface is Excel. So I talked about, Excel is a great tool, but it's not designed for enterprise budgeting. So we allow you to continue to use the interface of Excel, but add all of the controls, the security, the workflow behind the scenes. Now, one of the main reasons we do that is because we use TrueSky on a SQL database. So instead of having data embedded in spreadsheets and shared on your drives, everything is centrally stored in a SQL database. This helps to improve the accuracy and reliability of your data so that you can really rely on the numbers and the budgets that you're creating. TrueSky reduces the administrative effort. So a lot of that or all of that setup, merging, copying and pasting that you're doing in an Excel-based process is taken away by our tool. Lastly, TrueSky is configured for you. So when we get into the demo in a few minutes, you'll see a sample. It is just a sample. We will work with you to figure out what needs to be configured and how your tool needs to work to suit your needs and your requirements. The next part of our solution is the integration. And this integration is something that we are really proud of and a really big differentiator for TrueSky. We are the only certified integration to Sage 300, and we integrate so that you do not have to manually maintain both systems. So Sage 300 will become your data source, and any changes that you make in Sage will automatically be pushed to TrueSky. So you don't have to worry about 2 kind of separate, disparate systems. You have all of the information you need across both. We can create different input sheets and report layouts that can automatically adjust based on any changes in Sage. Again, so you don't have to do that administrative work. We always schedule the integration. For most customers, we do that nightly, but it is based on your needs. And you can also run that integration on demand with the click of a button from our administration console. Last but not least, obviously we integrate with Sage, but we can also integrate with other solutions, CRMs, HR systems, anything that you need to provide value in your budgeting process. Now, the next part of our solution I've kind of referenced a few times, but it is all about our implementation methodology. Again, we will configure TrueSky to work for you and not require you to change the way you work for TrueSky. In the sales process and definitely throughout the implementation process, we spend a lot of time getting to know your business and getting to know your requirements so that we can deliver something that works for you. You will have access to a dedicated project manager and senior consultant that you're in frequent communication with to make sure we're delivering something that you're happy with. Now, also on our implementations, I do want to mention, we do always work on a fixed fee basis. So you will get an exact dollar amount for what you need to implement. No guessing, no time and materials, nothing like that. And the last component of our solution is our support. This is something that we're also very proud of. It's something that we really focus on. We work to proactively schedule support around your budget periods. So whether you're budgeting once a year or you're doing quarterly forecasting or even monthly reforecasting, we ensure that we have a team available to help you. And most of the time, that is the same team that did your implementations. to ensure that we understand what you need and we know not only the software, but the business reasons and the processes behind it. So you will always have the support of True Sky consultants to help with your budgeting and forecasting needs. Of course, we do also have that standard, phone and email support desk for quick questions and all of that. But your support team will be available to you whenever you need them. That being said, I'll pass it over to Alan to do the demo and show you True Sky in action.
All right, let me share my screen here really quick. All right, so where I'm going to start, or where I'm going to focus this presentation is going to be on the end user experience with True Sky. Now, from an end user point of view, your users are going to interact with True Sky through an Excel-based user interface, as Stephanie was talking about earlier. This allows you to leverage all of the learning that you've already invested into Excel up to this point. It also allows you to, leverage any of the literally thousands of blog posts that are out there that talk about how to do certain things in Excel. It also allows you to leverage the fact that in reality, when it comes to doing budgeting and forecasting, there isn't really a better user interface for crunching numbers than working with Excel, right? This is an application that's now, 35 years old, give or take. Makes me feel old saying that because I've worked with it for most of those years. It's 35 years old, and I know Microsoft, I've heard numbers that literally are in the billions of R&D have gone into this product over that course of time. And you're going to get to leverage all of that stuff, which is one of the really big advantages for you. It's also why when you deploy True Sky in your environment, your end users are going to pick it up so rapidly, and you're going to get very little pushback as far as the application goes. Now, we all know you might get pushback from your users about having to do a budget to begin with, but you're not going to get pushback on the tool or how the tool works. So home, insert, page layout, these are all the ribbon bar items that you're used to working with today in Excel. But where we come in is the one that says True Sky. Now, I want to point out at the start, we support multiple languages for the application. So if you have international operations, right now I've got set up English, Spanish, and French. And not only do we change the user interface to that language, we also deal with the fact that different countries deal with things like the thousand separator and the decimal separator differently. Some countries will use a comma for the thousand separator, some will use a space. When it comes to decimals, some will use a period, some will use a comma, right? So we handle that as well. So different people can be working in the user interface language of their choice and in the format for dollars and cents of their choice. Yet this is all going to roll up into one comprehensive budget. Now, again, keep in mind the UI for True Sky is Excel, but behind the scenes, again, to reinforce what Stephanie said, we have a complete solution. So there is a database that stores your data in a structured format that allows us to apply data level security. We have a workflow approval process built in. As I said, we have data security. I always like to emphasize that multiple times. We're going to have direct integrations with backend data systems, such as Sage 300. So again, all of that is in addition to what you're going to see here. Now, where I'm starting is on the button, the hub. The hub is the central area where an end user goes to access what they have been given rights to see and to work within True Sky. Now I'm going to focus on this first tab here, assignments. Assignments are input sheets. They're how you get numbers manually into the system. And under the annual budget cycle, I have to work on office expenses and travel expenses. Under reports and financial statements, I have these 4 financial statements available to me. Excuse me. Now, these 4 reports and these 2 assignments are what I see when I log in to True Sky. A user sitting next to me who logs in may only see input for, say, travel expenses and not access any reports at all. One of the themes that we will carry throughout True Sky, along with security, is that we will dynamically render what an end user sees and can work with based on that user's security settings. This is one of the reasons why end users pick up True Sky so rapidly. You don't have to teach them Like, you've got a shared drive with 200 different Excel workbooks in it. You don't have to teach them which one is theirs or remind them to upload it back into that shared drive when they're done. We manage all of that. And we also, by limiting what they can see and to work with, we take away a lot of the confusion. People can pick it up more rapidly because they only ever have to worry about what they see up on screen here. Now, I'm going to start with office expenses. Now, other things that we provide you when you're working the TrueSky is what I'm going to call command and control. Give you that control over the process that you don't necessarily have with Excel. First one of those is start and end dates. So you can set up TrueSky that when you publish things out, users cannot start working on a budget cycle until after the start date has passed. Now that's rarely the problem because let's face facts and reality here. Most people tend to procrastinate when it comes time to doing the budget. They push it off as long as possible. So more important than the start date is the end date. You can configure TrueSky to automatically lock people out from being able to make changes to budgets and forecasts once the end date has passed. Now, why is this important? Well, if you've ever started preparing a package for the board that shows you your upcoming forecast, or for the bank, or for your upper management, and you open up the budget numbers one day, and then you go back to finish them the next day, and the budget numbers are changed, and now you don't know what's changed or why it's changed, well, you're going to have complete control over that. You never have to worry about numbers changing when you're not prepared for them to change. Now, TrueSky also has a complete workflow approval engine built into it that allows you to route your numbers through various different levels of approval. I'm not going to go heavy into that, but know that this is what allows you to get more people involved in the budgeting and forecasting cycle, to break the budgeting and forecasting cycle up into smaller pieces, but each of those pieces that an end user might know the best out of anyone else in your organization. Yet have all of that information roll up automatically and in real time with approval flows and notes and comments without any additional effort. So again, get more people involved in the process, more people that are closer to the action. But what you're seeing up screen right now is our instruction tab. So usually for most deployments, we tend to give instructions. Now, most of you are not budgeting every day, and hopefully you'll never have to be doing budgeting every day of the year. But because people aren't budgeting every day, we like to give some reminders, hints, things that they need to keep in mind when they're doing their budget. Because again, it's not something you do on a day in and day out basis. So that's what the first tab here is. But the second tab is what I really want to focus on, which is office expenses, right? So down the side here, these are my filters, my slicers, my dimensions. Different people will call them different things. In my example, for my business process, I have a filter for location. I have a filter for department. I have a filter for currency because we support budgeting and reporting in multiple different currencies. And I have a slicer for version because we support unlimited versioning of your budget. So start with version 1, copy version 1 to version 2, enter into version 2, compare version 1 to version 2, and so forth. Okay. These are my slicers for my presentation. Your slicers are going to be completely up to you and the business process that you're budgeting and forecasting against. So let's say you're doing expense type budgeting at a GL level. Well, your slicers, odds are they will equate to the different segments in your chart of accounts as defined in Sage 300. If you're doing, say, revenue forecasting at a customer level or a product level or a customer at product level, those slicers might be customer and product. If you're doing compensation, you might have a slicer for position or employee. So these slicers will be configured specifically for you and your setups and the kind of business process you are budgeting and forecasting against. Now, if I wanted to work with a different location, I could click my little edit button here, and up would pop a list of the locations that I have access to. Now, ongoing themes, security. So if I get access to the Seattle office and the user sitting next to me doesn't, I will see it in this list. The user sitting next to me won't. I will have published one item and it dynamically adjusts itself for the individual user. Views like this are also great for when you want to look at your data different ways and having to create dozens of different reports. So if I wanted to just pull back data from my Seattle office, great, I could do that. But if I wanted to also combine data from my Dallas office and my Miami office, well, now I could select all three of those. And now it would either roll up those three locations together in one number for me, or maybe lay out those locations side by side on columns for direct comparison. Now, to reiterate something Stephanie mentioned earlier, we are a certified integrated solution with Sage 300, right? We are on the Sage 300 price list. You are buying us through Sage, so you kind of have that level of confidence. One of the things they have done is certified our integration with Sage. So if you add a new department, a new location, a new account, a new customer, a new inventory item, whatever the case may be, including if you're doing PJC, a new project, and something of those natures, we will pick it up automatically, right? So you're not having to manually maintain two different systems. It's part of that reducing the workload that goes around with you having to manage and budget, or manage and control a budgeting and forecasting cycle. So again, we're going to take that effort away for you. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve data from my Seattle office for the corporate department. And now it's going on and making a call and bringing me back the latest information that I have access to. All right, so I'm going to close down my filter pane and I'm going to zoom in here a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see. Now, always keep in mind, I always harp on it, security. If I get access to the company cars account and you don't, I will see it in this list. You won't. We will have published one item, created one item, again, adjust itself based on security. Now, for the rest of it, what you see on rows, what you see on columns, color, shading, font control, all the rest is completely up to you and how you want your users to interact with TrueSky. I am showing 12 months of budget, 12 months of actual and projection, and 12 months of variance. But you could have multiple prior years of budget, multiple prior years of actual, calculation columns, whatever makes sense for when you're doing a budgeting or forecasting cycle. I am budgeting in this setup on a monthly granularity, but we also support granularities of daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly, okay? I am budgeting on a calendar year, but we also support budgeting on a fiscal year. Enter on a calendar, report on a fiscal, enter on a fiscal, report on a calendar. We can also handle things like, if you're a retail, 445. So we have all of that capability for you. And just so, because I just saw a quick question pop up, I will answer and leave time at the end to answer all the questions. So I'm not ignoring you now, but I will come back and do all the questions at the end for it. So Angela, I will get back to you towards the end there. And anyone else that wants to start putting in questions as we go, type them into the question bar and I will make sure we leave time at the end to answer all of them. All right, so again, budgeting on whatever granularity you want, different calendars, enter on a fiscal, report on a calendar, enter on a calendar, report on a fiscal, 445, and so forth. Now, when it comes to an end user picking up TrueSky, they get to pick it up really, really rapidly because for the most part, it's them just using Excel that they know today. I can do direct entry, I can do a copy paste, I can do the autofill. And if you look at the formula I am typing, it is a true Excel formula, not Excel-like. I'm not having to learn some new type of syntax that's kind of like Excel, but I got to remember that it's not a colon, but it's a period, and it's this, that, or the other. They already know how to use it. And the moment I hit save, my numbers are saved to the back-end database where they are instantly available to any other user to access in real time, okay? You don't have to worry about emailing Excel worksheets back and forth. You don't have to worry about them checking, document check in and check out to something like a SharePoint, if that's what you're using for document management, or a Slack. You don't have to worry about shared drives. You don't have to worry about trying to roll up all these numbers through multiple layers of formulas into a master workbook. We handle all of that for you, okay? And your users are going to be able to pick it up really, really quick. But we're not just the wild, wild west of Excel. So we gave you control, again, a theme I'll come back to, where you need it. So as an example, if I tried to change an actual, you'll see I'm locked out and prevented from doing it. If I try to delete a row or add a column to the worksheet, I cannot do that. So again, we've limited the ability for people to edit in certain areas that you don't want them to change. But at the same time, if I have someone that likes to use color scales to visualize my numbers, I can use those right there. So I have all of that functionality built in. So again, you're probably able to leverage about 99+% of Excel when you're doing a budgeting and forecasting, but you get that control that you don't have just by Excel by itself. Now, additional stuff that we've done to take it to the next level. Audit trails, something that Excel lacks. So anytime you make a change to a number in TrueSky, we track what was the change, the date and time, the user, and the assignment that was in play when that change was made. So if you ever had that finger pointing problem, when you go and review the numbers and say, okay, where did this number come from? People say, I don't know how that number got in there. I didn't put that number in there. You can't hold me accountable for that number, right? All of that goes away. Really useful if you've got multiple people working on the budget at the same time. And if you like an older number better, you can actually simply highlight that and copy it back into the system. We also give you the concept of adding commentary to your numbers. Now, getting high quality numbers into the system, that's only part of getting a quality budget or forecast. The other half of that equation is trying to get some insight into what your people were thinking when they put that number in. Why is this number going to be so high? Why is it going to be so low? And so forth. And getting it out of their heads into a place that everyone can take advantage of it. Now, some of you may be using that right mouse click, add a note, add a comment in Excel feature, which is a great start. But the problem with that is none of those notes, none of those comments roll up automatically. They're embedded in the worksheet. You can't roll them up into a master workbook. Well, we've taken that concept and database-ized it, where we allow you to add notes and commentary, but it is attached to the data element and travels with the data element. So I put in a note for my budget for January for the supplies hardware account. And you can see as I scroll down here, we tag the note with who put it in, the date and time, right? And what is that note? So this example, I'm explaining that we need a new printer. If we don't get a new printer, we can't send out invoices. So again, gives some idea to why this number is important. I can add as many new notes as I want. You can even add copies of electronic attachments. Now, the notes all get tagged with the user and date and time. And again, if I have an electronic attachment here, like maybe it's a PDF with a quote, maybe it's a business case in Word or whatever, you've got it all right here. And people can go back and forth. So we use these notes and these attachments for two purposes. One, to make budgeting and forecasting more collaborative. Get this information out of those one-off emails or phone calls that only benefit the two people that were on the thread. But just as importantly, it helps centralize all of the important backup information that goes into doing budget to actual analysis later on to help decide how well are you doing as a company. So instead of having to go hunt through shared drives, through people's desktops, or trying to use Outlook search, which is something that I think everyone has had fun with at one point or time, right? They're trying to find these documents. They're all in one place. Okay. Again, we're making you more efficient, but we're also centralizing and giving you greater access to that information. Other things that we've done, and again, the concept to improve the quality of your numbers, get your people in and out quicker. This is our data tools, and the data tools are just that. They are rapid data manipulation tools. And again, the goal, people in and out quicker, but improve the quality of your numbers. So let's say I just want to do what I call the divide by 12 method of budgeting, right? Which is I'm going to take these numbers and I know how much I want to spend for the year. And instead of going cell by cell, I'm going to come up here and do 100,000 and I'm going to choose even. And now I'm going to hit replace. And it knew how many cells I highlighted and automatically did the math for me. And I could highlight a whole bunch of others and hit replace, and it would do that math for me. Now, divide by 12 is quick. It's easy. But if you're using TrueSky to ultimately drive to something like cash flow projections, the divide by 12 doesn't help you because, as you're probably aware, you have very few things in your organization that are identical from month to month. Maybe a couple rents, maybe some leases, but that's really about it, right? So again, you get an inaccurate cash flow projection. So maybe a better way to do is to build in some more truthful seasonality of your numbers. So let's say you know that you spend more in the summer, right? So you have a summer trend, maybe you're a summer camp, right? Well, now when I hit replace, it allocated more to the summer months and less to the winter months. Or maybe you are a ski resort. And so now when I choose my winter trend, it allocates more to the winter months and less to the summer months. Or maybe the best predictor for this year's trend is going to be last year's trends. And now I'm going to trend it based on how my numbers trended last year. So again, through the trending and the seasonality, you're going to get more accurate numbers. Now this other tool can also be used to do bulk changes. So I'm just going to copy some numbers over here randomly. So let's say I go in and I submit these numbers for approval, and my boss says, you know what, you can spend some more. We're going to approve your budget more. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to take all these numbers, I'm going to put in 1,000, and right here, I'm going to go value. And now each and every time I hit increase, my numbers increase by 1,000. Or I'm going to come in here and decrease by 1,000 each and every time I click that button, okay? Or maybe my boss says, you got to cut by 23.5%. So I'm going to go 23.5 and now do percent. And now every time I hit decrease, my numbers decrease by 23.5% without me having to go cell by cell by cell. Or maybe I want to start the budget cycle by this. I'm going to come over to my actuals. I'm just going to do copy and I'm going to do paste right there. And now I'm going to do 5% increase, and now all my numbers bumped up by 5%. So maybe that's how I do my budget. I take last year's numbers, I bump up by 5%, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to adjust this one down a little bit, and I'm going to bump up this one manually a little bit more, and now maybe I'm done with my budget. So these data tools get your people in and out quicker, which is going to be important because you're going to get a lot of pressure if you're not already from your bank or your board. If you're just doing the once a year big budget cycle, that's going away. You're going to get tons of pressure on you to start doing quarterly reforecast, if not monthly rolling forecasts, right? So data tools, one of the ways we get your people in and out quicker, but also help improve the quality of your end product at the end of the day, especially if you are driving to something like cash flow projections. Now, excuse me, up to this point, I have been doing dollar-based input, but TrueSky fully supports the concept of driver-based budgeting. Driver-based budgeting is where you take rate times quantity or rates times quantities to get at a dollar amount. And driver-based budgeting is really a good thing to move to if you're not already, because especially if you're trying to do production planning, headcount planning, knowing those quantities and rates is going to give you a better indication of what you need to staff or what you need to purchase than just having dollars. But here's an example, a very simple example of how we do it. We usually do far more complex in real life. But here's my head count. And if you look down here, kitchen and cleaning supplies, if I try to edit it, I can't edit it. But if I change my head count value, my kitchen and cleaning supply value changes. So we support driver-based budgeting, and numbers entered into one area can definitely adjust numbers in a different one through like a formula type driven process. Other examples of this, people might forecast revenue and then put a driver as, what are your costs as a percent of revenue, and it figures out all of your costs. So there's different ways to use that driver-based budgeting. Now, while you're budgeting, at any point in time, if it helps your people to have visualizations of what is going on with the data, you can roll those into your budget input templates and your reports as well. Again, some people are going to find this easier to do with visualizations, so we fully support that concept as well. Now, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to talk about doing buildups of your numbers. So oftentimes when you're doing budgeting or forecasting, you've got a line, but there's a lot more that goes into that line. Examples, IT expenditures. Maybe you've only got one line for IT expenditures, your GL. Marketing, telecommunications, employee training, okay? So as an example, what went into employee training? Well, if your people are actually budgeting for employee training, and again, it could be the same for any of those other examples I used, what do they usually have to do? Well, now I got to stop what I'm doing in this sheet. I've got to go into another Excel worksheet, maybe just one on my desktop, list all of my team members, what the classes are, right? What month they're going to occur, and what the dollar amount is going to be. Then I have to sum that up, and I probably copy paste that into your main worksheet. and away I go. And the problem with that is twofold. One, it's added extra work to that person to create that worksheet, the copy paste and all of that. But the other thing that's even worse is odds are all of that great backup information ultimately goes missing. People, leave it on their desktop, they delete it when they're done, it sticks in email. And so 6 months from now, when you're trying to do analysis, you have no idea where that backup is. Well, we let you do those buildups inline in real time. So employee training, I'm going to expand out here. You'll see I've budgeted for these two classes, HR for Mark and First Aid for Shelley. And on the fly, I can come up here and add another class, give it a title, who it's for, it's however you want to type that in, right? And how much it's going to be. Okay, so now I have done a buildup, and you see it's total to my top line for my employee training. So now when I go ahead and save and submit for approval, without my boss having to hunt me down, my boss can look and say, okay, why is Alan budgeting so much for employee training without having to find me, no emails, no phone calls, can expand out and say, oh, okay, and maybe gives me a rejection because, Alan, you're going a little heavy on employee training. But just as importantly, 6 months from now, I'm doing a budget to actual analysis and, completely different layout. Doesn't look anything like this. Maybe it's an income statement, right? Why are we over or under on employee training? Instead of trying to hunt down all that backup information, you'll be able to expand right there in real time. So again, we go back to that theme of giving you that centralization and control of your data. So all of that information that you need to make business decisions later on is in one place. You don't have to waste time trying to find it and so forth. And you can do these kind of buildups in every area. You've got control over it. Again, it doesn't always make sense in all lines, but you've got control of where you want that to do. So that's a built-in feature that we allow you to do those buildups. Now, as I've been budgeting, you might have noticed that some of these icons have gone from green to yellow to red. I'm going to put in another really big number here just to highlight that. This is our visualization that this user has not met some form of data governance that you have laid down for this budget cycle. Now, TrueSky supports both the concept of a bottom-up and a top-down budgeting cycle. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, bottom-up is where you just let the end users start budgeting and all that budget rolls up however it is. Top-down is when upper management dictates the budget and pushes it down to the department managers or what have you. Most of you probably do something that what I call is a modified top-down, or a modified bottom-up. You could use that, whichever term you want to think about it, where your upper management lays down goals and targets for whoever's working on the budget. You have to cut by 3% in these areas. You have to increase by X dollars in these areas. Do not forget, if you add in this area, you need to subtract in this area. If you add in this area, you also need to add in this area. Right? Those rules usually go out at the start of the budget cycle in an email. The end users will open that email, read that email, close that email, delete that email, and ignore that email, and submit whatever they want. And getting to those targets is one of the reasons why the budget cycle can tend to drag on, and because of all that back and forth and back and forth. So you can build those governance rules into your input process. So, and these rules can be as broad or as narrow as you want them to be. They just have to be logically definable. In my example here, I'm comparing what I'm budgeting this year against what I spent last year. If I am a 0 to 10% increase, I'm showing green. 10 to 20% increase, I'm showing yellow. Over 20, I'm showing red. I hit my validate button. And right here, I get immediate feedback as to what is wrong with my numbers. So I'm not guessing, okay? Now, this data governance and validations can also be tied in with the workflow approval, such that if I have greens, great, my numbers going clean, no big deal, they get ready for approval. I have yellows up on the board. Well, maybe I get a warning that says something like, you know what, you're outside of our guidance, but you're close enough that we're willing to discuss it with you if you can make a case, right? But it might get rejected. But then you can also set up the system such that if you've got reds on the board, people can't even submit for approval because you know what? Their numbers are just going to get rejected anyway, and all they're doing is wasting everybody's time. So data governance, in this example, can be used to help get you, again, higher quality numbers, but also shorten that amount of time it takes to get the budget cycle through. These alerts can also be used in a reporting environment. So let's say you've got a report that compares this month to last month, and you're looking for anything that goes above or below a certain threshold from the month before, right? So again, to quickly identify those outliers as well. So we give you all of that within TrueSky. So that gives you an overview of input. I'm going to show you a couple other, switch gears a little bit to kind of an analysis. So right over here, 1.25 million. How did I spend 1.25 million last year in my department? Well, probably a common question you get when your people are doing budgeting or forecasting is, have all those POs come through? How did I spend my money? Because I need to budget this year and so forth. And what happens? Well, normally they make that request. They call up or email somebody in accounting or finance who actually has access to Sage 300, because you're not giving access to the accounting system to everybody, right? And so somebody in accounting or finance has to stop what they're doing, go find the appropriate information out of Sage, run some kind of report, maybe dump it out to Excel, do some kind of manual manipulation, take out certain pieces of information, whatever the case may be. Pack it up, email it back to the end user. And there's two problems with this. One, it adds to the workflow of the accounting and finance group, right? Who's normally, certainly during the budget cycle, is already hectic enough without having to fulfill those kind of requests. But also, there's a turnaround time. Let's say I've got a window of opportunity to work on the budget Thursday at 4 p.m. And now I've got to wait for 3 days for you to get back to me with the report I need. So now that messes up my schedule, right? So rather than rely on the old school way to do it, why don't we give the end user the ability to drill back into, say, Sage 300 data in real time. So I'm going to come over here and do links, payables, and PO. And now it's making a call and going back into, in this example, Sage 300, and bringing back all the AP and purchase order transactions. Now, a couple things. One, it's not bringing them back everything, right? It's only bringing back the ones in the example for my location, my department. It's not bringing back every expense account that you see up on the screen here, only the ones that pertain to the business process and the screen in play. It's not bringing back 10 years of data. In this example, I'm bringing back 1 year so they can do some analysis, but it could just be the month that you're on. But now what do I have? What can I do with this? Well, as a user, obviously I can resize my columns, kind of basic kind of stuff, and I can move them around if I want to, something like that, or what have you. But let's say, maybe I want to sort it by how much I spent from lowest to highest, from highest to lowest. Okay, too much for me to get my head around? Well, let me see. What were my top 10 purchases? Well, my top 10 purchases were those items, and I'm bad at math in my head, so I'm going to go sum. And my top 10 purchases came to almost 25 grand. So again, this gives me a little bit of information to help me work it on my budget for my department, right? So I'm going to clear those out. Now I'm kind of thinking month by month. Well, maybe I just want to see what are the kind of things that I buy in a February. And it'll limit the list to just what I bought in February. And maybe what did I buy in a March? A little bit more. April, right? All right there. Okay, April, I don't buy anything. So again, it gives you some better tools for planning. But again, a little bit too much, still a little bit too much, for me to get head around. So I'm going to group it. So I'm going to group it by account. And now I can see I'm spending money on company cars, company meetings. I'm going to throw the vendor in there as well. And so now I can see I spent money with Adobe, CamSoft, Mobile Warehouse. Well, there's a tablet purchase that got booked to my software account. Or maybe, you know what, that's not from my department. Why am I getting charged with that? I didn't get any new tablets last year, right? So the goal of these drill downs, and they don't just have to be back into Sage 300, by the way. They can be any other electronic data source you want to drill into. But the goal is twofold. One, offload a lot of the work that falls into the shoulders of accounting and finance, right? So they can focus on more high-valued items. Two, if I, as a user, I want to do my analysis at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, I've got all the tools I need at my fingertips. No excuses, no delays. Okay. So that kind of shows you what we do from a data capture and an analysis point of view. Now, switching gears yet again a little bit, any data that we have in TrueSky, we can report upon, including doing presentation quality financial statements. Financial statements that you can email out either as an Excel worksheet or as a PDF, or If you're still into that kind of thing, you can still print them, right? So this is a very basic one. Most of the ones we do for clients are far more complex, but I like to keep it simple for these presentations. I'm showing again, budget, variance, actual for a couple of years. You can have multiple prior years of actuals on your financials, prior years of budget. I'm showing an income statement, but we do things balance sheet, cash flow, other reports, anything that we've got data on, right? But some other things that we can do that are unique, right? So you see here for this financial, for the first 4 months of the year, I'm bringing in actuals, and the next 8 months, I'm bringing in budget. These reports can be set up such that automatically next month, it'll bring in 1 more month of actual and drop off a month of budget. So you get these rolling type of forecasts. Also use this time intelligence to do things like trailing 12 reports, or reports where every month you want to see 6 months forward, 6 months back. All of those kind of things are available. And then obviously, as you can expect, we've got different types of drill downs here to see the kind of things that I was showing you earlier. And you can access notes, audit trails, and drill downs all from reports as well. And you can even add notes to actuals. So if you want to explain after the fact why your actuals are so high or so low, you've got all of that. So again, presentation quality reports out of TrueSky as well. Final thing you can use TrueSky for is as a dashboard. Now, some of you may have already invested in a dashboarding tool. Maybe you're using, say, Sage Enterprise Intelligence as an example. And if you are, that's great. We can become a data source for those dashboarding tools. Okay. However, if you haven't made that leap yet, TrueSky can also be your dashboarding tool. All right. So what I'm going to show you here is what I call a reforecasting tool. Okay. Now this tool is not just about pretty pictures. We're giving you the capability, I'm going to shut these back to none, to do what if type analysis. So you're not looking at the past through pretty pictures, you're also being able to project out to the future. So I can decide, you know what, I want to display my what ifs, and I'm going to get another chart that comes up here. It's overlaying right now. But what would happen if we could increase revenue by 400%? What does it do to our revenue? And ultimately, you'll see numbers change for net income. And people want an increase in compensation, and maybe we're going to cut expenses dramatically. So, and again, it doesn't have to be line charts. It can be, any of the data visualizations that are available in the Excel world. But with that, you get that ability to not just visualize your data, but also help visualize your data and do future projections with it. So now with TrueSky, you get the ability to budget and forecast against any business process that you can think about. Expenses, revenue, compensation, CapEx, projects. Okay? You're going to get direct integration with your backend data sources like Sage 300. So you're not going to have to manually maintain 2 different solutions. You're going to get workflow approvals. You're going to get data level security. You're going to get people in and out of the budget cycle quicker. You're going to get automatically roll-ups of all of your budgets and forecast. You're going to get complete reporting, presentation quality financials. You're going to get that deep dive analytics that I was showing you as well. And you're going to get reforecasting or dashboarding, excuse me, all within the one application. You can pick and choose which of those that you use, obviously, right? But all of this that I've shown you is built-in functionality of TrueSky. So that's what I have to show on this. I'm going to bring Stephanie in to do, I think she's got a couple wrap-up slides, and then we will answer any questions. So if you do have questions, and I hope we get a couple at least, type into the question bar in the GoTo interface, and as soon as Stephanie is done, we will answer your questions. Steph?
Thank you, Alan. There are a couple questions coming in, and I just want to make sure we have time. So feel free to put your questions in as I'm doing these kind of summary slides here. But I sincerely hope you enjoyed that demo and it showed you a little taste of the different things that we can do to help with your budgeting, forecasting, and reporting processes. Quick summary, obviously you saw you do get to continue using Excel, leverage the knowledge, the power, the functionality of 35 years or something like Alan said, to manage your budgets, but add control and security and all those things that you truly need in an enterprise solution. You can very easily involve more people without increasing the administrative work, reduce the amount of errors, and ultimately increase the quality of your budget. We talked a lot about our integration to Sage 300, huge benefit of our solution, integrating with the data you need for your budgets and all of your reports. And ultimately, you will have a system completely configured for you with our tailored implementation and ongoing support. So you have a team to help you every time you need it for budgeting and reporting. So typical next steps is we'd love to chat with you, learn a little bit more about your needs, and then we are happy to do another demo, showcase something like this or something else. You may want to see our compensation planning functionality or maybe sales and revenue forecasting, lots of stuff that we can do. But when you're ready, we move to what's called a scope review. That is where we take a look at what you're doing today, likely in Excel, and determine what it would cost time and money to implement in TrueSky, and then we provide you with a proposal. So before we open it up to questions, or I guess at the same time, I would love to propose another poll question and just understand what you need from us in terms of next steps. I will put that one up, and maybe at the same time we can answer some questions. Alan, Alan, I'm not sure if you can see them.
Yep, I can see the questions. So I'll start from the
Awesome.
first and go up from there. Okay, so the first question we had was, does the Sage 300 chart of accounts have to be set up with user security on the GL accounts for TrueSky to work that way? And the answer to that is no. TrueSky has its own security model that allows you to set up security. It's one of the things we talk about when we deploy it, what makes sense for you. And the reason we do our own security model is for most of our clients, their backend ERP, like Sage 300, is not their only data source. Something like a lot of our clients, what's been really super popular lately is compensation planning. And a lot of our clients are outsourcing their compensation to a different application, whether it be like an ADP or Ceridian or what have you. So because we pull from multiple different data sources on a regular basis, we have our own security model. So I hope that answers that. And again, for any of these, if you don't like if my answer is unclear, not if you don't like my answers, but if my answer is unclear or I didn't get your actual question, please put another question in and I'll try to cycle back to it. Okay. Does TrueSky track actual expenditures against the budget in real time with PO encumbrances? So we can pull any data out of Sage 300 that makes sense for your deployment. We like to think of our data as real enough time, not necessarily real time. Most people are updating things on whether it be a nightly basis or multiple times throughout the day, as opposed to instantaneous. We have our own database. We're not leveraging all of their tables. We're not adding to the Sage 300 tables. But we can do drill downs back into any, like that thing I was talking about, any of the Sage tables. I showed AP and PO, but if it had the encumbrance stuff, we can drill down into that. We can also pull data from that. So I hope that answers the question. If not, we can always do a follow-up session, talk a little bit more about what you're hoping to accomplish there. All right, next question. We allocate our corporate admin departments to the individual operating departments as part of our budget process. Can that be done quickly using TrueSky? Yes, didn't show it during this presentation, but we do allocations a lot where you're budgeting that overhead stuff, whether it be salaries, whether it might be something like utilities or, rent, whatever the case may be, right? And then pushing that down to individual departments. That could be based on a lot of different metrics, and different costs can be pushed down on different metrics. So maybe certain things are done based on headcount, other things are done on square footage, others are done on revenue or what have you. So yeah, we do a lot of allocations on that. And related to that, we use the Sage allocation accounts. How would they be managed in TrueSky? I know we've done stuff with allocation accounts, but unfortunately, and this is for you, Angela, we'll make a note of that and we can follow up with you. I'm not an expert on those in Sage, so I know we've done stuff with them. I just can't remember all of the details on that. So I'm not trying to avoid your question. I just don't have that knowledge off the top of my head on it. let's see, next one. As a nonprofit, we have to budget revenues by inputting predefined government funding, and then budget the remaining funding requirements under a different funding source. Yeah, a lot of we've actually got quite a few clients that fall under that not-for-profit, nonprofit banner that are dealing with funding sources, grants, and have to track things by funds, where whether you got restricted or non-restricted type funds where you can only budget certain things for that fund and then have to budget other things off of another fund. We do handle that for those clients. And again, that's something we can have as a deeper discussion, but certainly we're doing that today with other clients or something similar. All right. For Matt, how does revenue budgeting look in TrueSky? Well, I'll give you just a real quick, it really looks however you want it to look, to be honest. Let me share my screen here again really quick. Here's a couple examples of revenue forecasting. Again, a lot of different ways to do it. This first tab shows, customer by product, where I'm picking a customer and I'm seeing just the products that that customer is allowed to purchase. And I'm able to put in some numbers here, and we're using some visualizations based on, I think this example, standard deviation, to see things that are out of too far big to, are outside of a certain threshold, right? Now, in this example, the user cannot edit the price, but they can put in a discount. And what happens is this gets applied, and then these numbers feed the financial model, almost like a subledger feeds a general ledger, mapping up, customers' products, whatever your matrix is, to the appropriate GL accounts. Here's an example by products where I can put in, as an example, quantities, and they're letting me edit the price. So again, different ways to do it. You can go out as many months as you want. Here's another one where I'm bringing back customers based on their type, and I'm just budgeting at the customer level, right? But I can put in dollars. But here I'm also being given feedback. So like, how does this customer rank globally based on, say, running sales over the last 12 months or whatever, right? Are they in the top 25? Are they one of the top budget 25 people? Again, one of your top 25 customers, you might want to have your people spend more time thinking about their budget than somebody that is ranked number 230 out of 231 kind of thing. So that's real quick overview of revenue forecasting. I hope it gives you an idea, but we certainly do it. And we can set up follow-up to talk more about your specific stuff. Tina asked if this session is recorded, and it's because she missed quite a bit of the meeting. Tina, bad on you for missing this meeting. But yes, I do believe it is. I do believe we did record it, and they will be sending that out. So Stephanie can actually.
Yes.
Just so
aware, you will get a recording as soon as we get it generated from GoTo. So hopefully today, but maybe tomorrow.
Yep. And that runs through the gamut of questions. I know we're at the end of our time, so I'll stick around for another minute if somebody has any more questions. But I will say thank you very much for attending today and taking time out of your day.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right, I'm just going to end the call. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.